wish you had a financial BFF who could decode your bank statements and cheer you on? Ahuva Gruen is that friend with the brain of a chief financial officer and the heart of a coach. Today, we're talking profit, key performance indicators, and why clarity, not cash, is your real secret weapon. You're listening to Gratitude Geek, the podcast for female solopreneurs who've been around the block and are ready to build on your own terms. I'm Kandas Rodarte, productivity coach, internet pioneer, and fierce advocate for female solopreneurs over 40. We're done chasing trends, y'all. It's time to build smarter, not harder. Welcome, Ahuva.
Thanks so much, Kandas, for having me on the show. I love your philosophy. I love your intro. It's so true.
Oh, thank you. Tell us your story. How'd you become a champion for money?
I had it inborn when I was 5 years old. My mother had a beauty salon. She sold wigs, and I convinced my kindergarten teacher to buy a wig for my mother. Not that my mother set me up, no, but because I felt that was best for my teacher, that she would look the best. By the time I was 10 years old, I had a candy business. I would go to the local wholesale store, buy boxes of candy. Mike and Ike's wasn't in, let's say Tangy Taffy, different of the candies that was in when I was a kid. And I would sell it in school, in the neighborhood, in camp. Till my principal said at the end of 6th grade, you better stop or I'm going to kick you out, because parents were complaining. So I moved it to the neighborhood till we went up to the mountains in the summer. I sold soda, I sold candy. The time I was in high school, I was cutting people's hair. I always was a businesswoman. I used to watch my mother sit there and watch my mother come home from school and watch my mother work in her business. I loved it. So when I graduated high school and I thought what I want to do next, it was natural for me to go to become an accountant, because I always was a businesswoman. And you really hit it right, Kandas. So when I speak to friends and I speak to people, it always goes to financial. So while I was a CFO for a large company for 20 years, I ended up helping my family, friends, neighbors, spouse about what they could do in their business to do better. What they're doing, where they're leaving money on the table, where they're leaking out money, what is going wrong. My mind always goes to financial. That's just how I'm wired. So then in COVID, when I left my corporate job and I thought of what I want to do next, so I want to take another corporate job in a nursing home, in a big company, I decided to follow my passion and to become a fractional CFO, which is fractional Chief Financial Officer, to help businesses grow and succeed. Stop leaking out money, stop spinning the wheels, or how they want to scale. You want to scale and make more money, not just scale and turn your wheels and make less money. I had a client that came, he said to me, professional service industry, he said he made more money when he was an attorney, had one attorney working for him in the firm than when he had 4. I turned that around with God's help and with strategy, with processes, with accountability, looking at the whole picture, seeing what's going right, what's going wrong, coaching him, and really turning things around. And I love it. This is my passion in life.
You are right about sometimes more employees doesn't mean more money unless you know the right strategy.
Right.
People often say that you shouldn't talk about politics, you shouldn't talk about religion, you shouldn't talk about money, you shouldn't talk about sex, right? But if you don't talk about things you don't learn. A lot of folks are embarrassed to talk about money. How do you start that conversation with someone who might not know how to have a conversation around money?
It is a huge, huge issue, is that in businesses, that business owners are much more willing to talk about sales issue, operation, Financial is like, ooh, it's like step back. But if they have like little hints, for example, stomach turning over every time paying payroll, or I met a business owner, they'll like the story, Kansas, real story. So I had a consultation with a business owner, and he says to me, in the conversation that's supposed to be talking about financials, he doesn't have money to hire in-house a bookkeeper. He doesn't have the money to invest in a fractional CFO. He doesn't have money to take home to his family, but he had $3 million in sales. And I said to him, Mr. So-and-so, there is something really wrong that you're not sharing. If you have $3 million in sales and you cannot take home money to your family, you cannot take home, pay in-house bookkeeper, and you're not happy with your offshore bookkeeper or wherever it was, and you cannot afford to invest in a fractional CFO, something is really wrong. Then he started opening up to really what was going on in his business, what it was. So a lot of what I do is with podcasts, with LinkedIn, is I bring awareness. First step is awareness. It's what's really going on. I went from booth to booth and I asked them, do you play catch up with cash? And the ones that said yes, I asked the next question. Do you have someone in the financial seat of your company? And they all said yes. And many of them said no, they don't, they're playing catch up. Because yes, cash is king. Sales is vanity. Profit is sanity, and cash is reality. You need all three pieces. You need to have the sales to have what to work with. But if you don't have profit margin, then you're not getting anywhere. And if you don't have good processes and you don't have the cash flow, it's not reality. You have to have all three pieces.
I want to go backwards. You said cash is king and sales is vanity. Dig into that.
I'll start off with an example. I was showing a newish client looking at the profit and loss. Now, if you just look at the sales, it looked like 1 week he had super high sales. For him, it was high. It was 100,000. It looked really nice. It looked like he had a great sales week. But then, if you look at the cost of goods sold, what we saw was the cash of goods sold was close to the 100,000. He did someone a favor for whatever reason. He gave him like a big bulk of product at cost price. So the sales looked great, like he had a great sales week. But if you continue looking and you saw cost of goods sold was almost as high as the sales and the profit margin was like not existent, it was vanity. It wasn't really the truth.
Yeah.
And then profit margin gives us sanity, because profit margin is not only sales. Sales are important, but you have to have good profit margin or you're just going to spin your wheels. So profit margin is super important. It's a sanity. But if you don't have good processes and you have high accounts receivable and you don't have the cash in the business, you can't survive either. That's where the cash is king.
When I was in my early 20s or late 20s, I don't know, sometime in my 20s, I was a buyer for a chain of sporting goods stores. And so this is how long ago it was. It was so long ago that GPS was a standalone product. And so they just created these GPS systems for mountain bikers and backpackers and mountain climbers.
I remember when GPS started.
Yeah, it was back in the late 90s. And the profit margin on these GPS systems was 10%. So if we paid $90 for the GPS, which they weren't $90, they were way more than that. But if we paid $90, we could sell them for $100. So the profit on this thing was $10, right?
Which is not healthy.
No, that's not healthy. However, we could sell socks at like a 250% markup. So we could pay $2 for socks and sell them for $10. the profit had to equal itself out, right? So what I'm saying is the dude who had the $100,000 week, he could have sold it at cost to his buddy if he also sold it somebody else at a profit, and then it would have evened itself out. So the
Right,
strategy. So what I'm talking about is strategy.
right. So to be fair to that guy, there was a service, a monthly service plan that he was going to make the money. But for that week, I wanted to bring an example is that sales, if you don't have good profit margin, business owners, you have to have good profit margin. You want to take money home to your families or to yourself. You need good profit margin to cover your overhead, your rent, your payroll, your gas, your electric, your subscriptions, your staff, your take money home for yourself. And you also need profit margin to build up a reserve. So if you have a slow month, then you should not rely on credit cards or a loan. You have to have really, if you're an inventory business, you need to build up a cash reserve to pay for inventory. If you're a service based and you get paid, which is another whole topic, is how to structure, not wait at the end of a job to get paid. But if you can't get all the money up front or half, whatever it is, and you need to pay for the supplies for the job before you get paid. You need your own, money, cash in the account. So profit margin, a business that is on a 10% profit margin net, it's considered survival. So if with your business that you worked in, if they had 10% profit margin and different products, and that was a lead magnet together in the door, and there was different products that they made much more money that they could sell them on, maybe it will equal out.
Yeah. No, well,
But
in
business
that
owners, if they
instance,
don't know what they're doing, if they don't know profit margin, then they could be spinning the wheel. And then they wonder why I had a business. When I came in, he was using deposit to fund operation.
in my example, we may have sold $10,000 worth of GPS systems, but we sold $2 million worth of socks. So it evened itself out, right?
Right, that's what I'm saying.
And
And
but I was
after a
just
while,
giving
I'm
you an
sure they
example.
raised the price on the GPS too.
So let's talk about this. When something is new to market and the margin is actually dictated by the manufacturer and you can't sell it for more than the manufacturer says you can sell it for, you have to sell it for what the manufacturer sells it for. I mean,
Right,
there's rules in retail.
right,
And a lot of folks don't understand the way that the big box stores work. I mean, the reason why that dress is $99 in every store that you go to is because that's the price the manufacturer says you have to sell
right,
it for the first 6 weeks. You have to follow the rules, right?
right.
So let's talk about the people listening to this show are female solopreneurs. A lot of them make their own products. So let's talk about someone who makes her own product, and you can buy what she makes at Walmart that's mass produced in China. However, the product that the solopreneur listening to this show makes is handcrafted with love. The quality is 100 times better. I mean, we were talking about your mom's wigs before we started the conversation. I mean, I can buy a wig on Amazon for $20 that's going to fall apart after 6 months, or I can invest in a $1,000 wig that'll last me for 20 years, right? So you can't compare the Amazon wig to the handcrafted wig. You can't compare the handcrafted widget to the Walmart widget. So
I
it's a
just
lot.
had this conversation. Great point. I just had this conversation with a client of mine this morning. When you're in business, you could be the cheapest, like Walmart, or you could go for value. You want to get the clients who appreciate value. You want to get the clients who want customized. You want to get the clients who want like quality. So if you're going to try it, and in all businesses. It's in, custom made things, which you could charge a higher profit margin because it's customized, or it's in, let's say, professional service industry that you could get the cheapest clients and, make less money but more in quantity, or you could get better quality clients and sell better quality items and make more money and have less clients but at a better profit margin.
Yeah. And there are customers who shop for price, and some of them are
That's
shopping
not
for
where
the
we want
lowest
to be.
price. Some of them are shopping for lowest price, but there are customers who shop for highest price. They want the most expensive car. They want the most expensive watch. They want the most expensive
In
handbag.
shopping, they're looking for quality. We want quality, value,
Yeah.
because it's if you try to go, you can't compete with Walmart.
No. And you
You
shouldn't
can't
try. You
compete.
shouldn't even try.
There's no point in trying, and it's really, you don't want people who go for the lowest are also going. They're the type, I shouldn't stereotype, but a lot of times they'll be the ones complaining.
Yeah.
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 So really, like when you custom, I worked for a manufacturer, a business, and his thing was customize desk and customize furniture. When you're doing custom, automatically you could have a higher profit margin.
Mm-hmm.
When you're buying an item out of a box or out of, it's one price. But if you're customizing, you want to go with the wigs, which I grew up in the wig business, and I watched my mother do wigs from when I was basically newborn. If you do or hair or dyeing your hair or cutting, if the person looks at your face and knows what color or what cut, it's much more valuable than someone, oh, this is the in style cut. Fine. It's like when you buy your dress or like a gown, or when you customize a gown and have it fitting towards you. What will you pay more? But if you could afford it and you value how you look, you'll go much more for custom.
Yeah.
Or
There,
even if you don't, you'll go pay for someone to a dressmaker to customize it. How you cut, or let's say your hair, or furniture, whatever it is, jewelry, anything. It's all like, and you really want to go for more for value. It's much, it's much better all around.
not just value though, but uniqueness, one of a kindness.
Right,
Do you want the same thing everybody else has, or do you want something that's unique to you?
right.
No, jewelry for me is that I don't have a lot of jewelry, but the pieces of jewelry that I do have are very special to me.
And I'm sure
Yeah.
you paid for it to have it customized and what you wanted and when you designed it, or someone to design. Like I have a client who does shelving for commercial vehicles and, let's say, electronic lights and all these like customized thing. And he said to me, what's his specialty is when a client calls up, for example, commercial shelving, he asks them what's his industry, what's his pain points, what's working, what's not working, and he customizes the inside of the vehicle, the shelving, and whatever he does to it to what that customer needs, what that client pain point is, how to make it more efficient. In a woman, it could be beauty, how make her look prettier, whatever it is. But let's say for it was business to business, like how to make, instead of taking 2 hours to unload equipment for a job for one of his clients, it would take like 20 minutes. That saves efficiency, and that's much more valuable than going to a standard and buying standard shelving and screwing it into the frame.
Yeah. I once met a guy who built custom, he customized RVs and tour buses. And the photos of the insides of these vehicles were just amazing. I mean, people, if if somebody wants something, they are willing to spend the money on it. and people have particular things that they want. You know, very odd. I mean, if we're talking about custom party vans. So you can only imagine what goes into a custom party van. So let's talk about being rebellious with your finances. Is there anything that you have ever suggested to a client that is super financially rebellious, but it actually worked out?
I had a client who I told him to charge for consultations, and it could be rebellious because you could get less consultations, but it was amazing because like what we discussed, maybe he got less consultations, but he got much better. A was a new income stream, and it worked all around because he got better value clients. It was a professional service business, and if they couldn't pay the consultation, then how would they be able to pay for the service?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a
If
good
they
one.
were grouchy and like complaining and complaining about a consultation, then they could be the ones complaining and not wanting to pay. You have to look at the whole picture: people, profits, process, and products. And of course, financial reports.
Yeah, and product can be services.
Products and services or the products you sell. Yeah.
I don't agree with everything he says, and I'm almost embarrassed to talk about him today. But back in 20 years ago, when my husband and I started our business, we both read Rich Dad Poor Dad and the cash flow quadrant, the four quadrant, whatever it was called. And learning how to read your financial statements is so important. And there's a lot of business owners who don't understand their financial statements. I actually went
100%.
I went and took classes in college courses in accounting and business law so that I could understand what I was looking at with the numbers. And it made all the
Uh,
difference in the world.
100%. I had business owners who told me I opened the eyes. Before you could change anything, before you could do anything, you have to understand your profit and loss. You have to understand sales, your cost of goods sold, your overhead, what profit margins are, KPIs, key performance indicators, financial KPIs, profit margin, net profit margin, gross profit margin, and there's other KPIs that are not financial, like repeat customers and different ones, and the marketing, how much is it is also important balance sheets. Balance sheets is your assets, your accounts receivable, your cash in the bank, your fixed assets like your building, your expensive equipment, liabilities, accounts payable, what you owe your vendors, long-term liabilities, your mortgage, your commercial loan, your equity. You have to look at the whole reports, both reports to get a clear picture. Now, really, besides, and you shouldn't look at it once a year by your tax return. It's important to look at it monthly. Weekly, that could be challenging if not everything's in there. But at the end, when you reconcile your bank accounts, to then look at your reports, statement of cash flow, how the cash comes in, how it goes out, the beginning cash, and the cash. It's so important. Awareness is number one, to know your financial reports and really to look at it. And in order to use your financial report, it has to be clean, it has to be accurate. I see that's a big issue in businesses. You have to invest in your financial structure. Otherwise, it's like closing your eyes and making decisions out of your hat.
Yeah. So
It's
explain the
so
difference between, because this is a sticking point that a lot of people don't understand. What is the difference between an expense and a cost of goods sold?
so a cost of goods sold is direct expenses, and if you're manufacturing your custom products, making is also your labor that it costs you to make your product, direct labor, and material. And let's say if you're a service industry, then the hours of labor that it takes to get that sale, to make that item. So that's cost of goods sold, the cost of making your item or your service. Then there's overhead, indirect costs and overhead, like marketing, like sales subscription, like rent, like utilities, like administration staff. Expenses that are not directly to make that item, but it is important that you need it to keep your business running.
My husband and I had a manufacturing business. We made custom furniture in our previous life, and cost of goods sold also includes outbound freight, which a lot of people don't understand because you have to, even if you don't charge for shipping, it's
Oh,
still wrapped
yes,
into your
because
pricing.
shipping is also inbound shipping to get your items. Because shipping is a direct cost of selling that item. Any direct cost, direct labor. If you're manufacturing, it's also, some people don't believe in it, but it is the cost of your warehouse, the cost of directly affecting you selling your items. In Amazon, it's all the Amazon wonderful fees that they keep going up. Inbound shipping to Amazon, outbound shipping. Even if you don't charge for it, it's a cost of direct cost of selling that item.
Okay, let's say you're a potter. You make ceramics. You make coffee mugs, right? And so the cost of the clay is a cost of goods sold, but so is the shipping that you paid to the person who sent you the clay.
100%.
The glaze, all of that, and the shipping that you paid. And then when you ship the product to the client, the cost of shipping that you paid to ship it to the client is also a cost of goods sold.
100%, because it's a direct cost to sell that item.
Yeah, so a lot of small businesses don't understand that. So I'm glad we
But if they don't understand it, then they're gonna get the pricing wrong. They're gonna get their cost wrong. Then they get the pricing wrong, and then they wonder where's all the money.
Yeah.
Why don't they have money after the overhead? Why don't they have money to take home?
So let's use let's just pretend that somebody takes this is a sublimated coffee mug. So let's just take a coffee mug example. So the cost of going into this coffee mug is the cost of the mug, the cost of the ink for the sublimation, the paper for the sublimation, the shipping for all of those things, the labor to make to print and make the mug, and then the shipping outbound.
So let's say it costs you $30 to make, and you could sell it for $100 if you're really lucky.
If you're lucky with that coffee mug, yeah.
let's say it costed you 30 and you could sell it for 100, which would be a nice miracle. You would have a 70% profit margin. So then even if you had rent and utilities and everything, you would make enough money to take home. But if it costed you 30 and you sold it for $35, you would not have so much money. It wouldn't cover your overhead, and then you have a low profit margin and to take it home. And you have to know, based on what your overhead is, based on what you want to take home, based on industry standards, is how high you could price it. You have to take in the whole picture. And if you cannot raise it on industry standards, let's say a service or something, where else could you make it do more efficient to bring down the cost? If your competition is selling the mug for much less than $100, and it looks like you're not going to make a high enough profit margin, then where are you going to save money where are you going to cut costs, be more effective to really save money and to get more money home?
Yeah. And that's the tough thing. Because again, a coffee mug is a commodity item. So it has to be really special to be able to sell it for $100. You know?
And it has to be really special to cost $30 to make it.
That's true too. That's true too. But you know, a lot of artists, they undercut their labor. Like they you know, if if an artist is working for a Fortune 500 company and they are doing graphic design, they're making $100,000 a year, right? But a lot of them pay themselves 50 cents an hour if
Well,
they're
that's
working
a
for
huge
themselves.
problem because they could get burnt out.
Yeah. Yeah. So
They get
how
burnt
do we
out. You
fix that?
have to
How do we
really
fix that
know.
mindset? How do we
Number
fix?
one is education and like really like working with them, like speaking to them. Like
Yeah.
if you is oh well, like would you let your kid work for that? A lot of times things that we do, we wouldn't let our kids do.
That's true. Yeah, that's a great. Would you let your kid work for that? I love that. That's a great answer. That is a great
I'm
answer.
very straight, honest, and blunt. I'm not like a smooth talker, but like really, if you you should be making more money working for yourself, not working for someone else. You will not go work for someone else for that amount of money.
So,
You
is there any instance where an entrepreneur is doing work that has absolutely zero ROI that you would say, yes, you should keep doing that?
Well, there's work that you work on your business and in your business. So just marketing and branding that you don't see necessarily return on investment, but you can. A lot of businesses do things that really have like no return on investment, and then why are they doing this? You're not have a business if it's your hobby, fine, but you hobbies could get inexpensive. Are you in business or is it a hobby?
Yeah. Well,
It's
and
like a balance.
for a lot of people, it is a hobby that they just happen to make a little bit of money on. But if it's, if you're spending,
But if they're having cost, they have to cover the cost.
yeah.
And is
So,
it a side gig or you doing this full day? And ladies, you should know what's going on in your financials. Even if you're married or you have a boyfriend or spouse supporting you, only God knows the future. You don't know when you'll need the money for yourself. You have to know what's going on financially. You have to know what it costs you. Every hobby, I had a hobby. So I used to photography and I would take pictures for family, for friends, and I didn't charge. So yes, my camera, my expensive cameras, my Lightroom, it was a hobby, so it
yeah,
was fine. But it's not where I'm making my bread and butter.
yeah. But
And
you
after
found
a while
enjoyment
they
from it.
charge. Yeah, but after a while that Lightroom like went to subscription and it
Oh,
takes time to edit pictures
yeah.
and buying new lenses and things could be endless. But at
The
some point you want to take a hobby and and to make money on it. Because you could otherwise get burnt out.
That's true. Like podcasting, most podcasters don't make money podcasting. It's for most podcasters, it's a hobby that's very expensive. It probably costs 60 or $70 a month to host a podcast. A lot of folks don't understand that it might be free to listen, but it's not free to produce a show. So I am making a king size crocheted bedspread for my bedroom, right? And I have probably spent $300 on yarn, and I'm not finished with it yet, and I've probably spent 200 hours on it, right? There is no freaking way anybody could offer me any amount of money to make them a king size bedspread for their bedroom because in order for it to be cost effective, I would charge $6,000 for it probably if I wanted to
Yeah,
make.
but if you wanted to make it into a business, you would have to figure out how to do it for cheaper, how to do it more efficiently, making system and processes
Yeah,
to like I spoke to a client this week. Yes, and he's an artist and he likes to really like customize and take in. I said, but it has to be balanced. You have to have a process of how it's done and it can't take so many hours because you won't get the money back out of it and you won't be able to then pay your rent, your $10,000 rent and your overhead and your payroll on it. if you were doing it for business, you would have to figure out how to way to do it cheaper or
Yeah.
how to do it more efficient or really what.
Well, I think for crafts like crochet, the real money is in making the tutorial videos on YouTube and getting monetized on YouTube. Because you can make $10,000 a month on YouTube for tutorial videos if you're really good at it. So I it's
So
so
you have to see,
it's
you
yeah.
have to then a business owner had to see where is the money.
And what do I want to do?
Yeah,
I want to make a blanket for my bedroom. I don't want to make money selling them. I don't want to show people how to do it.
right.
I just want to finish this blanket for my bedroom and never have to make one again.
So that was for me, the photography. I
Yeah.
loved it. I didn't love so much editing it, but I loved it. And I read books and I watched video and I took courses. And now I hardly use it because I'm busy. But it was a hobby. It was a hobby and it stayed a hobby. But if you need to make money and you're spending all your days, I didn't spend all my days on it, then you have to figure out how would it be. But then I looked at it. Is it financially, how much money could I make being a photographer? Some people, yeah, make it really big, but for me, I didn't see it.
Yeah.
And it was a hobby. I'm a financial person. I stayed in financial. You have to really look, not everything that you like to do, you know how to do, could you make it into a business? And a lot of it also is people think they're good at something. Oh, they could open a business. But really, besides knowing how to do the whatever you're selling, whatever you're making, whatever service, is to know how to run the business part. And if you don't know how to run the business, go get help. Go invest in a financial coach. Invest in a fractional CFO, depending on, I end up working as a financial coach, really to set it up right. Don't go spend on a fancy website, a fancy phone system. Get the money in the door. Really come up with processes. If you're going to be a business owner, said to me, he's one man, he could wait for money, he could take our money on contingency base. It was also a law firm. And I'm thinking, very nice. You could pull it off when you're small. But when you get a little bigger, when you start scaling, it's not gonna work.
Yeah.
So you have to really know, and it's important, it's best to start processes in place when smaller process, how long you pay your vendors, how much time you get 30 days, you get 60 days. Don't pay everything COD cash on demand when you get it. Make sure you get a deposit. You're building custom things for a client. Back to, let's say, my mother's example. With wigs, you have to get a deposit. You have to know what it costs to make. Profit margin. You have to, if you're doing custom things, you also have to build in if there's something, some jobs you have to go back and fix it or whatever it is, or needs tweaking. Build in if in case, let's say you give a warranty, you sell custom machines, custom furniture, build that in because it does happen.
Mhm.
Warranties will happen. You have
Yeah.
to also know how to run the financial. Don't get a huge office if you have a few people. If you go, and I have this in a client, he ended up offshoring a lot, but he had empty space in his office. That's your office space or sublease, whatever it is. Brainstorm, see what it is.
Yeah.
Not just like if you end up working at home and you're paying for our office. I had another client that had that. Get rid of the office if you're going to work from home. If you give everyone your cell phone number, like I have, my clients have my cell phone, it's more like value based, not like a million clients. There was no need for me to keep a fancy phone system. Press one for this, press two for that. My clients much rather call my cell phone, and if I'm able to, I pick it up. If not, I call back.
Here's a hot tip. You can get a phone number for free from Google Voice. So you can give people your Google Voice number for free and it'll ring your cell phone.
100%.
There's a lot of ways to save money. Um, All right, it is time for us to wrap up. Is there anything that you wanted to cover that we didn't get to talk about yet?
Follow your dreams, but be with your eyes open and awareness, knowing what's going on is so important. Accountability is super important, and seeing your business who, not how, like the book says, what to delegate, what to do yourself. And there's another book I love. It has a quote: do less and obsess. See what you could do best, what you need to do, and delegate or don't, and to do the rest. Do less, do the most important, and do it well.
What's that from?
Great at Work. I think
All
that's
right.
the name of the book.
Awesome. That's a great. Do less and obsess. That's a
See
great
what
quote.
is the most important thing or what your clients want the most and do it well instead of doing like a million things and you're not specialized in everything.
Yeah,
Whatever I good at, I do. When I'm not good at, I will delegate, I will hire.
I love it. I love it. All right. How can people get a hold of you?
They could get a hold of me on LinkedIn, Ahuva Gruen, or on my website, agfinancialcpa.com, and I have a shortcut to it, ahuvacfo.com. Will take you right to my website. I also have a freebie for the listeners of the show. They could get it on my website or by DMing me on LinkedIn. It's the 10 biggest mistakes businesses make and how to avoid them.
That's a good one because avoiding mistakes is a really good idea. It's a very good idea.
It's
All right,
a
Ahuva, this
great.
is your moment of gratitude. For whom or what are you most grateful?
I'm most grateful for my relationship with my higher power, with God. They gave me a business sense. They gave me logic. They gave me problem solving skills. They gave me my family, my parents, my father who said, you start, you finish when I wanted to drop out of the CPA. My grandmother who was strong and independent woman. My mother. Yeah, that's what I'm grateful.
Thanks for tuning in to Gratitude Geek, the podcast for female solopreneurs, building genuine, lasting connections with clients, colleagues, and community. Our theme music is by Rev Brock and Soul Lily. Make sure to visit gratitudegeek.com for all the groovy ways to connect with our guest, Ahuva. This is episode 279. I've been your host, Kandas Rodarte. Stay groovy, my friends.
And I'm Ahuva Gruen. Stay groovy, my friends.